Hi, and a very warm welcome. I'm Greg Parry, and I'm a well-being specialist. And if we're really going to be focusing on the importance of well-being, we need to look at some of the habits that we've picked up ever since we were small children that lend themselves to higher levels of stress. One of my arguments is that stress is very much a habit. It's something which we adopt from the earliest days, and we find lots and lots of ways to demonstrate, to manifest increased levels of stress. It's not deliberate, it's an unconscious reaction. But if it's a habit, well, maybe we can do something to adjust it and make it a much more productive use of our energy. The way that you see the world has a huge impact on how you think and feel. You only have to take a quick glance at the news, social media, for your fear response to go into overdrive, because the news is full of terrible stories, and it's quite normal to have the impression that the world is a very strange and dysfunctional place. However, it just reminds me of a friend of my mother's, similar age, who began every sentence, every conversation with, "Ooh, isn't it terrible? Isn't it awful?" And I assumed the first time I met her that something terrible must have happened, but she would dredge her way through the news stories looking for reasons to justify her attitude that the world is awful and terrible. The same amount of energy could be used to look for reasons to be grateful. I mean, newspapers, news media in general, tend to sell more copy based on bad news. We know that. Social media functions very much on pushing bad news. If you have an unpleasant experience, you're 10 times more likely to get your story circulated than if you have a happy experience. It's just the way the algorithm functions, because we engage more closely with bad news than with good news. Even infants, little babies, 3 times more likely to respond to a scowl than to a smile. It's a defensive reaction. It's for our survival. It helps us to be prepared in case of some kind of a threat. Once we begin to understand that we are more likely to be influenced by bad news, by problems, by scary events, we can begin to insulate ourselves from these knee-jerk reactions and perhaps take a moment to step back and consider how we are reacting. That's the key. You just take a moment to reflect. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? Why am I thinking that? Why am I getting upset? Why am I anxious? Why am I afraid? And just by questioning, by interrogating your own thoughts and feelings, you trigger subtle changes in brain activity. But they're very important because you move the emphasis from the part of the brain that drives the fear, the stress, the survival mechanisms, and you automatically enhance the use of the higher brain function, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that most psychologists would say makes us human. Our ability to think and plan and see logically, clearly, to visualize. This is where problem solving has its roots. So if you're looking at any situation at work, society, in your private life, and you're really looking for clarity, take a step back. I'm always recommending that you relax your shoulders, relax your face and jaw, breathe more deeply, but take a moment just to give your brain a chance to analyze the data, to come up with clearer, more logical approaches. Getting, can I say, the big picture, because when you're stressed, our perception narrows. It's bound to. It's an evolutionary facet of our long history. We narrow our perception to focus on the problem because it might be a danger. When we're more relaxed, when we have distance, physically, metaphorically, when we create distance, our perception opens up. And then we see the problem, whatever it is, in context. And it's interesting because within that broader horizon, we're more likely to find the answers to the questions which are troubling us. Interesting, these are all totally natural phenomena. We're using the inbuilt mechanisms that are very much the staple foundation of our evolutionary history. And by using these simple techniques, you get to use your brain the way that helps us to function at optimum efficiency. So taking a moment to step back, physically, metaphorically, creating space to assess how you're reacting to any situation, invites you to present a different set of thoughts and feelings. And quite often these are quite subtle changes. But when we stop immediately, think, oh, it's terrible, it's awful, and we refuse to introduce this sense of fear and outrage, we say, okay, let's look at this more clearly. You can insulate yourself from a lot of the rather strange intentions of social media that want to control and attract your attention. That's what the algorithm does. And you begin to introduce a sense of objectivity and clarity. We're going to make this world a better place. We need a lot more of this healthier, stronger, more positive approach rather than always being herded into the stress response. If you find those ideas interesting and you'd like to make any comments, suggestions, or observations, you feel free to email me. I love getting your comments. My address is in the description. But in the meantime, these are really simple techniques to help you to overcome a lifetime's habit of knee-jerk reaction and start to introduce some small, subtle adjustments to your behavioral platform so you can begin to see things with greater clarity, and you might want to put in some positive thoughts and feelings to enhance your well-being. That will work for you, and because we are all socially interdependent, your positive behavior, your newfound positive attitude is going to touch the lives of those around you. So it's a very virtuous cycle of improved behavior. Maybe we can make the world a better place. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow, but in the meantime, I'm going to wish you a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me.